So, good morning, students. Today we will discuss Marxian concept of state or Marxian theory of state and neo-Marxian theory of state. I have already shared two books on different theories of state and one article uh, on neo-Marxian theory of state. If you go through all these, academic stuffs, books and articles, you will find, many nuances in understanding of Marxian theory of state and neo-Marxian theory of state. In neo-Marxian theory of state, you will find, three intellectuals, what Sibo in his presentation, he had dealt with it, Miliband and Pulantas. Right. So their work is the contribution to the neo-Marxian theory of state. Today I will briefly introduce to all of you the concept of state to the classical Marxism and to the neo-Marxism, subsequent Marxism. Let me put a statement before you and ask you something. The statement is this, that Karl Marx, he was a stateless intellectual without a will. I'm repeating, Karl Marx was a stateless intellectual without a will. What does it mean? What does it mean? Can anybody tell me? Karl Marx, he was against the state or he was for the state? I want a response from your
Sir,
side.
Karl Marx was against the state.
Any other students?
Yes, he was against the state.
Karl Marx was against the state. Any other? Quick response. Those who can respond, they can, otherwise, no problem. Or if I put this question slightly differently, was Marx an anarchist? Was Marx an anarchist? Any response? Durati?
He wasn't.
He was not an anarchist.
Yes.
But then you are saying that he is anti-state. He
Yes.
doesn't want the existence of the state. Why?
Yes. It's
Yes, sir.
because the state is being looked at as an instrument of the bourgeoisie class to promote their own interest. So why
Yes.
am I saying that he was not an anarchist? Is because he was not in favor of orderless society, but he was in favor of classless society, where the power will be in the hands of the working class.
Yes. Karl Marx was not against the state, but certainly he was against an unjust state. And state to Marx, it is a capitalist state. State to Marx, it is a capitalist state. So as long as state maintains liberty, equality, and fraternity, then Karl Marx has no problem with that state. So that's why in explicit understanding, we know Marx as an anti-state or stateless intellectual, as if he is not for the state, but implicitly seeing Karl Marx wanted to establish a state which will protect the liberty and equality and fraternity, these three values. But unfortunately, the state could not protect all these three values. Why? Because state is a capitalist state. State is for the dominant class of the society. So in a sense, we can say that Karl Marx is critical about the state, but he is not an anarchist. When Karl Marx could not find the solution to this capitalist state, then helplessly Karl Marx took a position to wither away the state. So as long as state will be there, exploitation will be there. So it is better for the individual, for the society, to dismantle the state. But remember, he was not against the state. He was against an unjust state. It was not his will to reject the state. He was not happily rejecting the state. You know, many intellectuals who reject the communist regimes has been influenced by Karl Marx, because they understood the intention of Karl Marx is not to establish an anarchical system. The intention was to establish equal freedom for everyone. Equal freedom for everyone. And Karl Marx understood society not in terms of different individuals, but in terms of class. Have class and have not class. There must be equal freedom. There must be liberty and equality, same liberty and equality for both the class. If capital is important, then labor is also equally important. Without labor, the capital is of no use, and without capital, the labor is of no use. So if capital and labor, they need each other, so also the have and have nots, they need each other, and they are equal. So Karl Marx, he was for equal freedom. In some place, Karl Marx declared that he is not a Marxist. Why? It is because the subsequent Marxists they tried to give a essential meaning to the Karl Marx. They reduced Karl Marx. They misinterpreted Karl Marx. And Karl Marx knew it. In the latter part of his life, he thought that these Marxists are not understanding his position. And that's why he said that I am not a Marxist. Subsequent Marxists understood Karl Marx as if Marx is an anarchist, as if Karl Marx, it was his will to dismantle the state. No, it was not his will to dismantle the state. He could not find a better solution to this exploitation of one class over the other. So that's why he was critical, and ultimately he had to give a theory which advocates to dismantle the state. As I have mentioned, Karl Marx understood state as the capitalist state which serve the interest of the dominant class within the economic system. So, the state operates within a society, and society is controlled by the economics. Society is controlled by the class consideration. So, when the state is there, then the state cannot ignore the society. The society cannot ignore the class identity of the individuals. So Karl Marx understood that as long as individuals are guided by the economics, as long as society is characterized by the class interest, and as long as state is the product of the society, then the state will continue to be a bourgeois state, because the consciousness of the individual is created by their position in the society or by their social class. There is no essential human nature. Our nature is guided by our positioning, by our position in the society, economic structure. Society means a structure that is based on economic. Now, intellectual who stands outside their class position, they can see the larger picture of how world works and how history is moving. The same thing it was also told by Plato, allegory of cave. So you need to go out of the cave in order to see how people behave, how people think, how people react. So who is an intellectual? An intellectual is a person who stands above than the class position, who is not influenced by his or her own class. Caste is also one class. Gender is also one class. Class can be defined in many terms, not necessarily on economic terms, in political terms, in biological terms. On different cleavages, you will find different classes. So, intellectual is a person who stands beyond this class, then only he can see the larger picture. Then only he or she can understand the world, how it works, how history moves. Now, these Marxists, they are critical about the liberal claims of human right that are universally applicable to and enjoyed by all members of the society. So here Marxists basically means they are supposed to be those intellectuals. I mean, Karl Marx has already defined the nature of intellectual. And the true Marxists are those who follow the prescription or who understand the meaning of intellectual. Now, these true Marxists, they are critical about the liberalism, or they are critical about the liberal claims to the human rights, that every individual is free, every individual is equal, government is formed on the basis of consent, right? Rights are given to the individual, and every individuals enjoy right in the society. So these are various statements of liberalism, or various assumptions of the liberalism, or principles of liberalism. And Marxists, they are critical about these liberal claims. Why? Now, to Marxists, that individual are not independent or autonomous. Individuals cannot be independent. Individuals cannot be autonomous. Why? Because for them, autonomous individual is an isolated individual. So when I'm saying I'm an individual, it means I'm living in a society. I'm interacting with different individuals. I am being guided by some values. My individuality has been influenced by many factors. So it will be incorrect to say that a free individual, a autonomous individual can enjoy the rights. Individual cannot be autonomous. An autonomous individual is an isolated individual. So when we are saying individual, we understand the interaction. And in interaction, we can find identity, we can find class interests, conflicting class interests, we can find domination, we can find exploitation. These are the reality of the society or the system. So if the society is characterized by all these things, then the state cannot be interpreted outside from the society. So what happens in the society, it also happen in the state. Now Marxists, they insist that government policy making should never be analyzed in isolation from the dialectical process and class interests that are basic to the economic and political life. So what it means? The society, you will find domination and exploitation. One is trying to dominate over the others, and one is being exploited by the others. You can find two forces in the society: exploited forces and exploitator forces. And these two forces, there is a constant interaction between them. There is a constant conflict between them. And Marxists, for them, the state should also be analyzed with that dialectical process and class conflict. Now within the state, there is also one class, exploited class and exploitator class. The interaction between these exploited and exploitator class, the conflict between the exploiter and exploited class, that produce and reproduce the society and the state. So it will be wrong if we will not analyze state from dialectical approach, from class conflict approach. Right. Marxists, they examine the state in terms of how the state is generated, and then how state regulates the class struggle. How the state is generated and how the state regulates the class struggle. Now to them, there are three main accounts of the state in a capitalist society. Three accounts of state in a capitalist society. And what are those three accounts of state? First, state as the instrument of ruling class. Second, the state as a arbiter of class conflict. Third, the state is the maintainer of the stability of the system. Before moving further, let me make this clear to all of you that theorizing state not only means supporting state, structuring the state, but also it means critiquing the state. And Marxian theory of state is all about critiquing the state, critiquing the capitalist state. The first account is the state as an instrument of the ruling class. Now both Marx and Engels, they put it in the Communist Manifesto, quote and unquote, the executive of the modern state is but a committee of managing the common affairs of the whole bourgeois class. In Communist Manifesto, Marx defined the state that it is a committee, and this committee manages the common affairs of the bourgeois class, not the proletariat class. So state to Marx means it's a bourgeois. There is no proletariat. Being a proletariat, you cannot be the part of the state. You remember elite theory. Now, once you are an elite, or once you become an elite, then you are not a mass. You inherit all qualities of elite. So state means it's a bourgeois state. The state is staffed. Staffed means there are different staffs in the organization: teaching staff, non-teaching staff, administrative staffs. Those who are working for the state. Now, these staff, various staffs of the state, they are closely, personally, they are connected, and they are all controlled by the capitalist class. So all the staffs of the state, they are not against capitalism, rather they are all nurtured by the capitalism. There are tight social and political connection between the owners and managers of larger corporations and leaders of the government who elect officials and senior bureaucrats. So there is a family relation between the owners and managers of different corporations, government, politicians, government officials, bureaucrats, etc. Now, in this context, the central purpose of the policy maker is the containment of pressure from the below to repress workers, to divert voters' attention from the oppression and inequality. So when the state is the constitution of all these people, like owners of the corporation, managers of the corporation, politicians, government officials, bureaucrats, these are all elites, elites of various kinds. So when state means all these people, then the intention of the state is the containment of the pressure. What is containment? Can anybody tell me? What is containment?
Restriction.
Yes?
Restriction.
Containment means restriction.
I guess so.
No, sir, satisfaction.
Yes?
Satisfaction.
Containment means satisfaction. Any other students? Durate? What is contentment? What is contentment?
Managing something.
Yes, a policy of creating strategic alliance in order to check the expansion of a hostile power, ideology, or to force it to negotiate peacefully. So basically, it is a strategy. Contentment is a strategy. Now, in that strategy, the state tries to put pressure on the workers, on the voters, so that they can divert the attention of them from the oppression and inequality. So if the workers or voters, they will have their attention on oppression and inequality they are facing, then they may revolt against the state. Now, what the state does, the state tries to put pressures on them. Pressure means either through reward and punishment. At any cost, the state doesn't want any revolution from the workers and from the voters. Right. There is also another nuance in the understanding, in the Marxian understanding of the state. It is not always that there is a strong bondage between owners, managers of corporation, managers of corporation, politicians, bureaucrats, government officials. It's not always that there is a very strong and solid relations. There is also competition among them. Again, in that competition, there is over exploitation on workers. It happens. So one company is competing with another company, corporation. Now they need surplus at any cost. So this urge of getting surplus more and more, it exploits the worker more and more because of the competition among the corporation to their short-term profit or benefits. There is over exploitation on worker. Now in such a situation, the state intervene in such a way which stabilizes capitalism further for long term without opposing the specific capitalists. So when there is conflict between the capitalist and laborer class, then the state intervene in such a way that in long term the capitalism gets strengthened. And it's very interesting actually when the state intervenes in this conflict, it seems that as if the proletariat class, they are getting some benefits. But even if they are getting benefits, they are getting it for very short term. But in long term, the intervention of the state stabilizes the capitalism further. So ultimately, we see that the state is always an instrument of ruling class. Your ruling class basically means the capitalist class. And state, the political class, cannot go against the capitalist class. The political class cannot oppose the capitalist class, because this capitalist class, they are contributing to the state. They are having monetary contribution to the state. State needs money. State needs resources. Now, the second account of state to Marxism is that state is an arbiter of class conflict. What is arbiter? Can anybody tell me? What is an arbiter? What is an arbiter? An arbiter is a person who settle the matters. Someone chosen to judge or decide a disputed issue is an arbiter. Now, Marx and Engels, they envisaged that the state may act as an arbiter between the social classes at a time when class struggle was evenly balanced. There is a conflict, a fighting between the bourgeois and proletariat. Before the state intervention to this conflict, the conflict, it was very much balanced. The conflict between the capital and labor, it was a very much balanced conflict, because one is incomplete without the other. But with the intervention of the state, the capitals win over the labor. Now, the state as an arbiter balances the class forces. Now, what the state is supposed to do? The state should further balance the conflict and neutralize the conflict altogether. So there is a balance between the conflict of capitalist and proletariat class, bourgeois and proletariat class. The state is supposed to further balance that conflict, and ultimately the state is supposed to neutralize that conflict. But the state doesn't do that. Not for Marxists. The state, substantially, the state is not at all neutral. The state is not at all neutral. Why? Why state is not at all neutral? Can anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me why state is not neutral as an arbiter? It is because there is a close connection between politicians, bureaucrats with the capitalists and managers. So state always takes the side of capitalist, and there is a reciprocal relation between the capitalists and the state. The arbiter state insists first on maintaining the social order. That is very important. Suppose the capitalist, they have encroached the rights of the proletariat class, and when the state intervene, the fastest thing the state will do, the state will order to maintain the status quo, maintain the social order. It means, so if the bourgeois has encroached on the rights of proletariat class, first that will be there till it is decided. That will continue. When the judgment will come that there is an encroachment and bourgeois should not encroach on the rights of the proletariat, then only the bourgeois will take back its encroachment. But till that time, the state, in the name of maintaining the social order or status quo, the state sides with the capitalist. They can even occasionally take the populist action against the capitalist interest. But once the crisis is past, these actions are quickly abandoned. Yes, many times the state has taken steps against the capitalists, but in which situation? Now, when there is a popular agitation against the capitalists, against the company, against the corporation, at that time the state has taken steps against the corporation, against the capitalist, because state doesn't want its voter, I mean the state is interested in votes of the individual. The state doesn't want to lose the voters. But once this crisis is past, then the state abandons all these actions that it has once upon a time initiated against the capitalist class. So, the state as an arbiter of class conflict is sectarian. It sides with the capitalist class. Then the third account of state in Marxian theory of state, that state is the maintainer of the stability of the system. Now Marxists, they see that the state performs key necessary function for the capitalist economic system, that is maintaining the order. Maintaining the order. Though maintaining the order, it seems that it is for everyone explicitly. The state is maintaining order. So explicitly, outsidely, it seems that as if everyone is getting the benefits because of this function of the state. But implicitly, the state, in the name of maintaining the order, the state legitimizes the capitalist exploitation over the bourgeois. because a order is a order only when one is the king, one is the ruler, other is the ruled class. If everyone is a ruled class, then there cannot be any order. If everyone is a ruler class, then they cannot have a order. So maintaining order means maintaining the dominance of the capitalist class over the bourgeois class. It matters little who actually manages the state apparatus. The state is compelled to implement the same public policies irrespective whether it is run by a dictator, a right-wing, pro-capitalist party, or even a social democratic party representing the worker. Everything depends instead on the state's structural position in relation to capitalist economy. So to Marxists, it is irrelevant who is controlling the state power. Maybe the state power is controlled by a dictator. Maybe the state power is controlled by the right-wing pro-capitalist party. Maybe the state power is controlling by the social democratic party representing workers. Whoever controls the state power. But one thing that is common, that the state cannot govern without having any relation with the capitalist economy. The state has to maintain relationship with the capitalist economy before it governs. Right. So this task of the state is to create the social and economic condition conducive.
Himanshu,
Yes, sir.
Dr. Himanshu,
Yes, sir.
I think you have a physical class now.
From 9 to 10.
But you are taking online class?
It has been asked by the students.
No, it has not been asked, but you are supposed to know. No online classes are supposed to be taken. All the classes are to be on physical mode. The students told you to take online classes.
I'll do it, sir.
Huh? The students told you to take online classes.
Yeah, because course has
No,
to
it
be
is strange.
completed.
It is strange. He is not taking his physical class and he is taking online class now. But Himanshu, who gave you permission to take online classes?
No, I'm
You are
doing it
supposed
from my
you
phone.
are supposed to take physical classes from 9 to 10. Instead of taking physical classes, you are taking online classes. Do these online classes have any result?
So may I talk to you later, sir? Right
No,
now
no,
after this
not
class.
later. You talk to me directly in front of everybody. Not later.
So I have now with the interest of the students,
No, no,
I'm
not
taking it
interest.
from my
Interest
phone.
is not this. Listen. Himanshu, interest. You have to take physical class. Physical classes are going on. No online classes are not supposed to be taken. But you are taking online classes, sitting quietly in your room, and you are taking online classes. Okay, you finish the class. I'll see.
Yeah. So the task of the state is creating a social and economic condition conducive to the capitalist enterprises, such as securing private property right, enforcing the laws of the contract, and maintaining predictable money supply. So these are the tasks of the state, and these tasks or these function of the state that is conducive for the capitalist class, or in one word we can say that is the accumulation imperative of the state. Accumulation imperative of the state. The state have greater interest in the well-being of the capitalist economic growth than do the capitalists themselves. I mean, the state is interested in the capitalist economic growth more than the capitalists, they have interest in it. Now, politicians and government managers will be hurt or will be in a disadvantaged position very quickly by an economic downturn. How? Now the politicians, they lose credibility, they lose votes. Government and bureaucrats, they lose revenues, and there is a permanent incentives for the governments to provide policies that are conducive for sustaining the business, investment, and confidence of the financial market. So government always provides, incentives in forms of different policies to the capitalist, so that the capitalist, they produce more and more, and ultimately the state gets more revenues and state gets resources to fund for its various welfare policies. Now, in addition to providing the basic legal physical infrastructure, the state stabilizes capitalism by maintaining social order through police, courts, and prisons. So the state not only provides basic legal physical infrastructure, the state also creates a kind of social order through police, through courts, through prisons, so that social order or cannot go against the spirit of capitalism. Right. So state is there for capitalism only. And Marxian theory of state provides a picture of how capitalism works. And it offers a critique of capitalism and liberal democracy. So basically, you will find that the Marxian theory of state, it is critical about the capitalism, it is critical about the liberal democracy, but actually, along with it, it also provides a picture how the capitalism works. So this is all about your Marxian theory of state. Today itself I will take another class on neo-Marxist theory of state. So I'm stopping here. Maybe you will have your next class.